Well, to the funeral of your relationship.
Eugene O'Neill, a handsome blonde man, said with a certain pathos, raising his glass. His friend Ryan Adams, a handsome brunette with the face of a Greek god, turned his glass in his hands as if warming it with his palms, then followed his friend's example. The man's look was gloomy. There were reasons, though. Ryan, who had recently turned 27, was going through a painful breakup with his fiancée. Tiffany and Ryan were to be married in a month. By now, the country house Ryan had recently acquired and renovated for his future family life should have been hosting a bachelor party. However, this Saturday, there were only 2 people inside, the failed groom and the failed best man. They methodically depleted the alcohol stock, shamelessly mixing types and strengths. Ryan had caught Tiffany cheating with a little-known director of some second-rate movie. Tiffany dreamed of becoming an actress and often ran to auditions. Ryan wasn't against it. Why interfere with his beloved's dream? He supported his bride and was proud of each of her achievements, even if it was just a 5-second role as a waitress in a series. Besides, Ryan often gave Tiffany roles in commercials his agency worked on, but the girl hungered for more. Soon Tiffany realized that a beautiful face wasn't enough for a good actress career. However, instead of signing up for acting courses to strengthen her skills, she chose what she saw as the easiest path, securing a good role through the bed. Ryan knew nothing of this. He, the naive groom, in a fit of romance, came to his bride's set. He decided to support her on her first day of work, bringing her favourite peony roses. However, when the shooting ended, Tiffany was nowhere to be found. He discovered the bride in the dressing room on the couch. Above her puffed the director. On top of his head, his hair was already falling out. The perfectly round bald spot, surrounded by dark hair, resembled a lake in a forest. The sight of that bald spot would haunt Ryan's eyes for a long time to come. Ryan didn't fight, although his fists itched. What was the point of beating the spirit out of the director? Besides, watching him try to button his jeans with sweaty, thick fingers, he looked somehow pathetic and disgusting. Ryan didn't want to dirty his hands. What bruised the man most was that Tiffany shouted after him. She ran barefoot, tying her silk robe as she went. Tiffany tried to cling to the groom's hands, but he pushed them away, unable to hide his disgust. The bride reeked of someone else's cologne and sweat. At first, Tiffany mumbled apologies, tried to smear tears and snot on her face, swore her love, but then suddenly changed tactics and declared, "This is show business, Ryan, don't be a child. That's what everybody does. It means nothing for me. I love you. Why are you making a scene?" Ryan then abruptly turned around and looked at his now ex-fiancée. He wanted to say many things, but his tongue seemed to swell and stick to his palate. His throat felt sore, his mouth nasty and sour. So, that's what betrayal tastes like, Ryan thought. Ryan stood looking down at his bride. He observed her dishevelled hair, the smeared red lipstick on her swollen lips, left after filming, the crumpled mascara. Tiffany was damn beautiful even at this moment, but Ryan no longer saw in her anything that used to warm his heart. Now he felt an emptiness inside. He stood and listened to her emotions, marvelling at them. People who hadn't yet finished their workday looked at the young actress and her fiancé with interest. They pretended to be busy working, trying to get closer to the couple. Everyone was eager for new gossip to discuss tomorrow over their morning coffee, especially since Ryan, the owner of a successful advertising company working with renowned brands, had also appeared on the pages of magazines. He was the very example of a man who rose from rags to riches. The boy, brought up by his grandmother alone, had no connections or money, but very early on realized that advertising was not only the engine of progress, but also a way to earn money. Dark-haired and swarthy, handsome as if from a glossy magazine cover, with a silver tongue and a Hollywood smile. He playfully managed to make his way into the right circles. Step by step, he found more and more clients and made a name for himself. However, Ryan never took all the laurels for himself. He founded the company with his best friend Eugene. They met while studying at the college, and their acquaintance was quite extravagant. Eugene and Ryan attended a soccer match, which ended with them participating in a fight against fans of the opposing club, standing back to back. At that moment, they didn't even know each other, yet they were already covering each other's backs. Later, they found themselves in the same police van, then spent the night in a holding cell. In the morning, when the officers returned their personal belongings with a warning finger wag and a "don't cause any more trouble," the newfound buddies went to Ryan's house. His grandmother reprimanded them both, but then fed them a hearty breakfast. From that moment on, they became best friends. Eugene studied journalism and was involved in design. Ryan studied marketing and was already planning to start an advertising agency. The guys had empty pockets, but plenty of ideas and enthusiasm. They decided to join forces and found their own advertising studio. Eugene's skills and creative worldview became the missing piece for Ryan's ideas. Years later, they were, if not at the pinnacle of success, then at least close to it. Gone were the days of sharing a single serving of instant noodles or taking turns wearing one decent suit. Travel, cars, apartments, and houses, everything became available to them, and to those who had always stood by them. For Eugene, such people were his fiancée Daisy, his mother, and his grandmother. Ryan had only his grandmother. 2 years ago, he met Tiffany, and for some reason decided she was the one. Alas, he was mistaken. Looking at Tiffany that evening, Ryan clenched and unclenched his fingers, trying to pull himself together. His head was spinning with questions, reproaches and expletives. However, he suddenly relaxed his shoulders and slowly exhaled. "Tiffany, go to hell," he said in an incredibly calm tone. Tiffany's face contorted, and she took a step back, as if her former fiancé had spat in her face. Ryan found it almost amusing. She had cheated on him, yet she felt humiliated and insulted. Oh, the irony! "What did you say?" She narrowed her beautiful, brown, almond-shaped eyes. "I denied wanting to discuss anything with you, to explain, to negotiate. I don't want to hear excuses or promises. You're dead to me now, okay? I don't give second chances, Tiffany. I don't give second chances to anyone ever. I've been dumped before, and you know it. So I'm surprised that you're surprised. What did you expect?" Listening to the measured beat of his heart, Ryan added, "And you know what? I think I've already let you go. I don't care. I don't care about people like you." Tiffany's face twisted in such a way that she no longer seemed beautiful to Ryan. She started spewing curses, but he couldn't hear her. He walked out to the parking lot, reached into the glove compartment, hoping to find a backup pack of cigarettes, but it was empty. "Great," he said with indignation, and called a friend, someone who was always there for him. He hadn't lied to Tiffany. Ryan didn't forgive cheating. As psychologists would say, it all started in childhood. Once, Ryan caught his mother, Lydia, with another man. Naively, he told his father, who, of course, decided that being cuckolded didn't suit him. It's uncomfortable to wear horns. He left his wife and child. Ryan's mother, left without a husband and means of subsistence, began working as a sales clerk and taking out her resentment and anger on her chatty son. She soon began to drink and raise her hand against Ryan. Thankfully, there was his grandmother. She first tried to influence her daughter but couldn't. Lydia drank more and more often, beat the child more and more frequently, and brought home strange men. One day she said that she never wanted a son and still didn't. It was his father who had insisted, and now he had run away. In the end, Ryan's grandmother took custody of her grandson, depriving her daughter of parental rights. Ryan's mother was only too glad to get rid of her son. At first, Ryan was withdrawn, feeling guilty about the collapse of the family he had thought happy. However, his grandparents did everything to rekindle the spark in their grandson. They succeeded, becoming his real family. His grandpa passed away when Ryan was 13. His mother didn't even come to her father's funeral, only calling to see if she would get any inheritance. Grandmother then hung up the phone and said that she should no longer appear in their lives. Ryan and his granny were left alone. When Ryan was still in high school, he decided he was going to make it in the world. He hoped to take care of his grandmother, to give her the life she deserved. And he was able to fulfill his dream, except Grandma didn't want money. She dreamed that her careerist grandson would have a strong, happy and large family. Alas, it hadn't worked out yet. Later, Ryan thought that it was all his own fault. He had fallen so blindly in love with Tiffany, so dreamed of his own family, that he closed his eyes to her shortcomings. And Tiffany, she was like his mother, superficial and narcissistic. It turned out that everyone saw the bride's faults except the groom. But love is blind. Now, when the bravado in front of his ex-fiancée had passed, Ryan was struck by longing and despair. Thankfully, his best friend was near him again. Eugene provided his shoulder and company as a drinking companion.
"You know, I think it's good that all this came to light now," Eugene said. "Not a year later, when you'd be married, or God forbid have kids. Then you'd be sharing property. If she took part of our company, I wouldn't survive. And what if she got custody? You wouldn't be content with a role of a weekend father. I know you. You look at other people's kids with that strange smile. You wouldn't be able to stay away from your own." "Tiffany didn't want kids," Ryan said wistfully. "She was afraid for her figure, her career, and generally disliked children. I accepted it, hoping she'd change her mind after marriage." "Why am I not surprised that she doesn't like children?" Eugene rolled his eyes. "I'm sorry, but I'm glad it didn't work out. Tiffany's a calculating woman, all glitter and no substance. You're the only one who didn't see it." Ryan sighed. His friend continued dissecting his ex, discussing company affairs, and opening another bottle. The conversation grew stranger. Speech became more slurred. Ryan especially was getting drunk faster, likely due to his emotional distress. "Do you know what Daisy told me?" Eugene suddenly declared. Daisy was Eugene's fiancée. They were to marry in autumn, October. Daisy loved fall more than any other season. Their strong bond was enviable. Eugene and Daisy had known each other since school, like characters from a typical romance novel. Eugene was the troublemaker at the back of the class, while Daisy was the obedient top student in the front row, shouldering the responsibility of class president. Eugene once confessed to his friend that he had loved Daisy since first grade, when he first saw her at the school assembly. Back then, Eugene wasn't the talkative troublemaker who made teachers count the days to their retirement. Before school, Eugene didn't attend kindergarten because his mother worked. At home, his grandmother, prone to overprotectiveness, looked after him. She forbade her grandson from playing with most neighborhood children, fearing bad influences. Consequently, Eugene's friends were limited to a couple of grandmother-approved kids, and his grandmother herself. This narrow social circle affected the boy. He knew how to cross himself properly and bake Easter cakes, but he struggled to make friends or communicate with others. On his first day at school, Eugene, uncomfortable in his new jacket, nearly cried, overwhelmed by the crowd of children. His mother, oblivious to his distress, left him with his future classmates to chat with the teacher and other parents. Eugene froze in panic. Besides embarrassment and fear, the boy had a severe allergy to flower pollen. He carefully avoided every bouquet in children's hands, like a vampire dodging garlic and holy water. The other children immediately pegged him as strange. Many already knew each other,
so they ignored Eugene, pushing him aside. Then suddenly, "Hi, I'm Daisy Gardner. Let's be friends," chirped a businesslike voice beside him. Eugene turned, and that was it. He was smitten. Daisy, like the other girls, wore a dark skirt and white blouse, with bows in her blonde braids, bigger than her head. Daisy's eyes were blue and incredibly large, like a cartoon character's. Her smile was open and wide. Eugene noticed she was missing a tooth in the same spot as his own gap. Daisy extended her hand and didn't lower it until Eugene shook it. Her palm was warm, small and soft. "I'm Eugene. I can spit through the hole in my mouth," he said, pointing to the gap where his lateral incisor should have been. When the children paired up, Daisy took Eugene's hand again. He no longer felt intimidated or alone. Daisy and Eugene's friendship blossomed. Of course, their paths sometimes diverged. Daisy gravitated towards girls, order, and studying. Eugene, influenced by TV shows, formed his own gang. He disliked studying, but excelled in sports, which earned him the tolerance of his teachers. He'd trade medals and trophies of sports competitions to skip dreaded subjects like chemistry. Still, he always walked Daisy home after school. The girl tolerated his antics, often defended him to teachers, and tried to help him in various subjects. Sometimes she even bent the rules, letting him copy homework or writing his papers and essays, pitying for her absent-minded friend. Eugene never let anyone bully her. In 5th grade, when Daisy got braces, Tom Brooke tried to mock her. Eugene threatened him that even a dental record wouldn't identify his teeth because he wouldn't have any left. Tom never joked about Daisy again. Eugene was slow to cross the line from friendship to romance. Perhaps he was shy or afraid of ruining what they had. He couldn't imagine life without Daisy, so he contented himself with friendship. Things changed in high school. Daisy became incredibly beautiful. The transformation happened suddenly, in just one summer. She went to her grandmother's and came back tanned, with loose hair, mascara on her eyelashes, and lip gloss. Now it was impossible to hide her figure, which had begun to change. That's when Eugene realized that if he didn't make up his mind, she would simply be taken away. He wouldn't survive such a turn. That's when he confessed his tender feelings to his friend. He, a local bully, blushed deeply at that moment and thought his heart would jump out of his chest. It turned out, fortunately, that Daisy also loved Eugene. Everyone in the class knew about it. Only Eugene hadn't noticed anything. As a result, they carried their love through the years. However, they decided to get married only now. Eugene wanted to succeed and bring his bride to a nice apartment. Daisy didn't hurry him. Ryan liked Daisy. Tiffany even felt jealous, noticing the warm relationship between them. But Ryan saw Daisy as a sister, and the girl also loved him as a brother.
"And what did Daisy say?"
He tried to raise an eyebrow, but his face from drinking felt numb.
"She told him a woman's secret, or something. Did you know that your name is a red flag for the ladies? Like all Ryan are total jerks."
Eugene perked up, not wanting to insult his comrade, and corrected himself.
"So that's not to say not good guys?"
"What do you mean?" Ryan furrowed his brow.
"Why?" "I have no idea."
Eugene shrugged.
"Ladies are just sure that decent guys with this name don't exist in nature, and they avoid Ryan."
"But I am decent," Ryan protested, although doubt was heard in his voice.
"There are exceptions to every rule," Eugene said philosophically.
"Great," Ryan exhaled.
"Now I'll definitely never marry."
Eugene patted his friend on the shoulder encouragingly and switched to another topic again. He said something about Daisy. Eugene could discuss his fiancée for hours, but now Ryan listened to him half-heartedly. However, catching a pause, he still inserted, "I want that too. Well, like you and Daisy."
Ugh, Do you want to marry a classmate? No problem. Let's take out the graduation album and go through the list.
Eugene chuckled, pouring another drink.
No.
Ryan shook his head.
I want to have it once and for life.
Eugene's hand froze over his friend's glass.
Listen, maybe you've had enough. You're already drifting into romantic philosophy. You're scaring me. Where's my favourite skeptic? Where did you hide him?
Ryan puffed up his cheeks resentfully, but then snorted, letting the air out at once. He jabbed his finger at the neck of the bottle frozen in the air, forcing his comrade to continue bartending.
I just don't see how I deserve this.
He squeezed out.
I did everything for Tiffany, you know? Some things can't be explained. There's no point in digging into it. She's just an idiot,
Eugene said confidently.
Daisy thinks so too. You know, Daisy is very kind and forgiving, but even she couldn't stand it. She called Tiffany an ungrateful cow who had hyaluronic acid stuffed not only in her lips but also in her brain.
Ryan snorted unhappily, mentally thanking Daisy for her support.
I don't know what to do now. The wedding invitations are sent out, the restaurant is reserved, vacation is planned, and my grandmother, she didn't really like Tiffany, though she keeps saying she doesn't have much time left. Last time I visited her, she took my hand and said she wouldn't die until she danced at my wedding. She was always talking about the wedding, you know. It's like all she lives for. It inspires her, and now, what am I going to tell her? She'll be heartbroken. Get married,
Eugene advised, shrugging his shoulders and rolling up a slice of prosciutto for himself.
Don't upset Grandma, and after all, the restaurant deposit is non-refundable. To whom, I wonder?
Ryan muttered unhappily, glancing around the table, searching for a pack of cigarettes.
And there are few people around you. Look closely. Right now, there's only you in front of my eyes.
Eugene choked on a piece of Italian ham.
No. Our relationship must remain a secret, my dear, he said with laughter. And besides, it won't be approved by the church, the laws of our state, or my fiancé.
Ryan finally found the cigarette packet, but it was empty. He hadn't noticed how he'd smoked them all during the evening. At the same time, the face of his beloved grandmother reappeared before Ryan's eyes. She would look at him with judgment. Granny didn't approve of tobacco, although she respected homemade liquor and brandy. The thing is, Ryan's grandfather had smoked like a locomotive. It's not known whether this was the cause of his illness, but he went to the grave because of lung cancer. Ryan didn't smoke at his grandmother's, and in ordinary life rarely turned to this habit. However, in moments of discord, he allowed himself to buy a pack or two.
You know what? He suddenly declared. I'm getting married, just like I planned. I'll marry the first woman I meet. Wow. Wanna bet?
It came out of Eugene's mouth before he could bite his tongue. Eugene and Ryan bet all the time, and on every occasion. They made bets several times a month, sometimes on insignificant matters and sometimes on something serious. Such a game was familiar to them, and a few people knew that this game appeared for a reason. Once long ago in college, Eugene became addicted to gambling and betting. The matter smelled like trouble when the guys began to borrow money. Then Ryan personally began to control his friend and offered him an alternative. Small bets on money, but only with him. Eugene managed to escape the mire that was pulling him down, but they hadn't shaken the habit.
Just a warning. This is a serious bet. You won't get off with dinner at a restaurant. Want to wager your new car?
Eugene squinted, certain his friend wouldn't fall for such a ruse. He'd recently bought a new fancy car. Ryan adored it, practically kissing the headlights each morning. However, Eugene underestimated his friend's level of intoxication, or his gambling spirit.
I'm in,
Ryan hummed, extending his hand.
I'll marry the first woman I see."
Eugene took it gleefully, anticipating easy money.
"Come morning. You'll regret this."
"How do you know?"
"Maybe I'll call Daisy, invite her over, then propose."
Ryan snorted into his glass as his friend flashed him the middle finger.
"Jerk,"
Eugene chuckled wickedly.
"Damn! I wonder what she'll be like, your fiancée. I won't leave your side. I'll spot her first to make sure you don't cheat."
Ryan was about to retort when a sudden banging on the door silenced him. The friends exchanged glances, their faces a mix of excitement and superstitious fear.
"You said we're surrounded by forest,"
Eugene clarified. Ryan nodded, adding,
"There are cottages, but they're far away, on the other side of the forest belt."
He listened, hoping they'd imagined it, but another knock came, followed by a woman's voice, ragged and nervous. "Hello? I saw lights in the windows. Please, help me. I'm lost in the forest." Ryan and Eugene shared another look. Ryan involuntarily recalled the fairy tales his mother used to tell. The woman, having spent most of her life in the village, spoke of mermaids who lured people into the forest to tickle them to death, and of witches who posed as distressed travellers. Ryan's tipsy mood eagerly conjured possible outcomes, yet he staggered to his feet and strode toward the door.
"Whoa! Are you sure we should open it? I've seen horror movies that started just like this."
Eugene, shadowing him, stroked the flames of doubt. Ryan waved him off and opened the door. No supernatural creature stood on the threshold, only a female vagrant. Why a vagrant? Because the girl was barefoot, filthy, her hair dishevelled with leaves and twigs tangled in it. Eugene whistled, eyeing the guest who trembled like an aspen leaf in the wind.
"Don't invite her in. If she's a vampire, she won't be able to enter,"
he whispered in his friend's ear, suppressing a laugh. Ryan looked up at him reproachfully, signalling not to mock others' misfortune. He stepped aside, making way for the stranger. She hesitated, glancing between the two men. She's afraid, Ryan realized, growing more concerned for the stranger. He didn't know what had happened to her, but the way she glanced over her shoulder, as if choosing between the gloomy forest and the house with two men, made him compose himself.
"Come in,"
he invited gently, feeling himself sobering.
"We won't hurt you, honestly."
She still hesitated, and Ryan turned to his friend.
"Can you call Daisy? Ask her to come."
Then he looked back at the girl.
"Daisy is his fiancée. I think you'll be more comfortable with her here."
Hearing his words, the woman looked embarrassed. She realized Ryan had read her thoughts and doubts about them. Nevertheless, she took a step into the house, shivering as the door closed softly behind her.
"I'm not going to lock it."
Ryan raised his hands reassuringly. Eugene, already dialing Daisy's number, snorted.
"Maybe she shouldn't be afraid of us, but we of her."
He narrowed his eyes. The girl looked at him in surprise, and he faltered under her gaze.
"Sorry, that's just me. Nervous."
Ryan shook his head and addressed the stranger.
"Miss, where are you running from? Should we call the police? Were you being held captive, or did something happen?"
She blinked, then shook her head. "No, don't, and don't call your fiancé. I'm really lost," she admitted, hugging herself. "Honestly, I've been wandering through the woods for hours and I fell into some foul-smelling ditch. My bad luck. My cell phone died. I thought I was going to collapse and freeze to death, and then I saw a light."
"At the end of the tunnel,"
Eugene quipped. Ryan shot him a reproachful look again, but their guest wasn't fazed. "No, a light among the branches. It turned out to be the windows of your house. I ran so fast that I tripped on a root and I think I hurt my leg. I was afraid I was hallucinating this house, like a mirage in the desert." She took a deep breath, sighing.
"You can tell us everything later. Let me show you to the bathroom and give you some clean clothes. Eugene will make tea. Ryan fussed, unable to bear the girl's chattering teeth any longer. Shall I give you my phone, so you can call someone? The girl bit her lip for a moment, then shook her head. No, I guess not. I don't have anyone to call, she said, sounding forlorn. Mum's in the hospital taking care of Dad. I don't want to worry them. Can I just call a cab and leave? No cab driver will let you in looking like that, said Eugene, who had already spoken briefly with his bride. They'll think you ran away from our house. We don't need any problems. You'd better calm down. Daisy will be here soon. I'll go make some tea. Though if I were you, madam, I'd drink something stronger. Angela Beckett, the name of the midnight visitor, was indeed tired, frightened, and chilled to the bone. She had taken off her shoes, finding it difficult to walk in heels through the forest. She'd carried them for a while, but lost them in a ditch, miraculously keeping hold of her bag. She lacked the strength to argue. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Trust in these men. Yes, they were huge compared to her, especially the brunette. Yes, they were clearly drunk. However, Angela hoped they were better than the one she had fled from. Deciding to trust the strangers, she allowed herself to be led to the bathroom, ensuring she could lock the door from inside. The hot water brought her to her senses, and the clean, albeit male clothes felt good against her skin. Angela tensed when she heard the men whispering. She relaxed upon realizing that they were simply joking, or rather, the blonde was teasing the brunette, who seemed to be the homeowner. Can you believe it? You're getting married soon, giggled the blonde, whom Angela heard being called Eugene. I can't believe it. How quickly fate knocked on your door. Are we in a soap opera? Is this destiny? God, I'm so excited. Feel my hand. I've got goosebumps. Leave me alone, you fool, the brunette said, preparing tea for his guest. I'll leave you alone, don't worry, promised the blonde, grinning wider. But first, give me the key to your new car. After all, you're not going to marry her. Angela decided to stop hiding, and with a cough entered the kitchen. The conversation halted. Eugene, taking in her appearance, tilted his head bird-like. Listen, you're gorgeous when you don't look like a swamp creature. The landlord elbowed his friend, causing him to yelp and fall silent. He too looked at Angela, but with a different gaze. The man seemed to be searching for injuries, bruises or scrapes on her. Are you all right? How's your leg? Are you sure you don't need medical attention? Police? He handed her a cup. I made it minty and added honey. My grandmother used to give it to me before bedtime. Angela nodded gratefully. She hesitated to drink in a strange house, but took a small sip out of respect. The drink was flavourful and sweet. No, it's fine, the brunette nodded. Anything else you need? Angela's answer left both the men stunned. Uh-huh. The number of a hitman who can put a bullet in my ex's temple, preferably without witnesses. Although, let my best friend who slept with him see the whole thing. Angela's voice sounded calm, but after her frank tirade, the kitchen fell silent. Angela blinked as if coming to her senses and yelped. She hadn't realized how she'd blurted out the caustic thoughts running through her head. Sometimes she believed strangers might be the best psychologists. You'd meet them once and part ways forever, never to be seen again, which meant you could be frank with them. But to dump her problems on others so harshly, that was something she'd never done before. It must have been the day's stress. I'm sorry, she blushed. I didn't mean to. You see, I'm getting married in a week, and today I caught the groom and my best friend together. Listen, give me the tea and I'll pour you some whiskey. Eugene broke the silence, then tapped his friend on the shoulder. You two found each other, eh? Two similar cheated souls? Angela didn't understand Eugene's meaning, but she caught the attentive gaze of the second young man's blue eyes. She didn't refuse the drink, though she didn't drink much. Soon Daisy arrived, before whom Eugene melted, and Angela
retold her sad story. Angela was 24 years old. She had been working for almost 3 years as a designer in a small publishing house. On top of that, the girl was exhausted, taking part-time jobs to shoulder everything, not just utilities and groceries, but also her fiancé's education. George, the so-called hero of this tale, was pursuing a second degree. He dreamed of becoming a lawyer. However, his dream was costly. Unable to work during his studies, he often borrowed money from his fiancée, never repaying it. Yet Angela loved her groom and naively believed her investment would pay off. Soon George would become a famous lawyer, maybe even open his own law office. Then they'd leave their rented place, buy an apartment, live happily. But as time passed, the situation only worsened. The last time Angela came home, she went to the underwear drawer for her stash. Her father had fallen ill and been taken to the hospital. She wanted to help her parents financially. However, instead of the set-aside bills, she found only an empty envelope. Angela immediately called her fiancé. George told her he had had some problems, taken the money, but forgotten to mention it. Angela was upset, but believed him again. In Angela's defense, George knew how to speak eloquently, surround her with care and attention, and, as the saying goes, pull the wool over her eyes. Later, reflecting on what happened, Angela began to realize she had waited for the wedding with George, partly because she was afraid to admit a terrible truth to herself. She had wasted years on their relationship. She feared acknowledging the pointlessness of it all, as if she were a marathon runner who had sprinted under the scorching sun, only to receive a punch to the gut instead of the coveted finish line and prize. However, the final straw in their relationship wasn't the theft of money. No, Angela, raised by good, decent people, valued sincerity and love far more than money. Angela had a best friend, Hannah. Hannah hated George, and he reciprocated. When Hannah visited, George defiantly shut himself in the bedroom. Angela worried, trying to reconcile them, depressed by the animosity between people close to her. Only now did Angela realize what a fool she had been. She had fallen for this charade, unable to imagine that people so dear to her could carry on an affair behind her back, metaphorically stabbing her in the back. The truth emerged by chance. That afternoon, Angela met George's friend from law school. Lee hugged her and asked, "How's George? Does he regret leaving law school?" Angela felt something inside her shatter and plummet. She forced a smile, shook her head and said, "No, it's all right." She cautiously found out from Lee that her fiancé had dropped out of school long ago. But what had he been doing since then? Where had he put her money? Angela immediately dialed George's number, but it was out of range. Then she called her friend, but Hannah didn't pick up either. Overcome with grief, Angela went to her friend's house in a nearby cottage village. Hannah opened the door with a wide smile, thinking it was the sushi courier. George was in her bed, naked, sipping champagne. "The diagnosis is clear," Daisy interrupted Angela's story. "You've been harbouring 2 nasty leeches. Don't you dare blame yourself. You're not at fault for being too kind. However, I'm concerned about something else. How did you end up in the forest at night?" Angela smiled nervously, fidgeting with her glass. "My stupidity," she admitted. "Hannah lives with her parents in a cottage village not far from here. They're on vacation now. I came by bus. I don't have a car. When I found them, I ran away in squeamishness. George dressed quickly and followed me out. He tried to catch up and he succeeded. I'm no athlete, to be honest. He tried to explain himself." Angela cringed, remembering how George had told her that she never had time for him, and he was a man with needs. She was horrified. She had no time for intimacy because she was paying countless bills, while he lived a life of pleasure and lied to her. Realizing he had likely used the money she had set aside for her dad's treatment for tonight's champagne and sushi, Angela felt nauseated and furious. "We had a big fight and I slapped him," she admitted,
but he lost his temper. I've never seen him like that. He grabbed me, shook me, shouted that I had no right to leave him. I got scared, kicked him in the groin and ran into the woods. He followed me. I heard him running, so I didn't even recognize the path. When his footsteps and shouts faded, I realized I was lost. It got dark quickly in the forest. Then, well, you know what happened. I wandered around trying to get a signal. I even climbed a tree but fell. My phone eventually died. Then I saw your house. It was fate, smiled Eugene, who for some reason looked incredibly cheerful and glanced slyly at Ryan. The brunette was pensive and drank more and more. Daisy stepped forward and hugged the girl like a good friend. Everything will be all right, she declared. I'm sure of it. Something new and good always replaces the old and bad. You lost a friend like Hannah, but you found us. And maybe you found a fiancé too. We have everything ready. All you have to do is say yes. Eugene winked at his friend. Angela looked at the brunette, confused. Strangely, he hadn't introduced himself all evening. He drained his glass and looked into Angela's eyes with determination. Yes, marry me, he declared. Eugene made a strange sound, like a pig grunting. Daisy gasped, and Angela's jaw dropped. What? She finally exhaled. Then it was the handsome saviour's turn to share his story of his bride's betrayal. He didn't even try to hide that he'd bet his car with a friend that he'd marry the first woman he met. I beg you, I need my car, he pleaded. Daisy sniffled nervously and shifted her gaze between the two betters. When will you stop these games? Never, the men chorused and chinked glasses, pleased with themselves. Daisy grew more agitated and poked Angela in the shoulder. Tell them they're jerks. She shifted her gaze to her guest's pensive face and shrieked, Wait! Don't tell me you think this idea isn't crazy. Angela shrugged. To be honest, I've never been adventurous. I've never even gone bungee jumping. I've always tried to do everything right and follow my conscience. And where has that gotten me? I work for an awful boss who makes me work weekends without pay, but I'm too embarrassed to ask for more money, and too afraid to quit in case I can't find a new job. I'm afraid to assert myself. I turned a blind eye to my fiancé's disrespect. She shook her head dejectedly. What if I didn't wander in here today accidentally? Maybe I need to be braver. Daisy tensed, eyeing her new friend's glass. How much have you had to drink? Not enough, said Angela, then looked at the brunette. And I agree. Let our exes eat their hearts out and realize that no one is irreplaceable. Eugene groaned, because he had already considered Ryan's new car as his, and the blue-eyed groom brightened. However, he then tensed abruptly. I must warn you, my name is... He held such a theatrical and tragedy-filled pause that Angela was sure she was facing no less than the grandson of Don Vito Corleone from the Italian mafia family. My name is Ryan. Eugene burst out laughing. Angela, on the other hand, squinted her eyes, waiting for some sort of continuation. Maybe last names? Ryan Starlin? Ryan Sinatra? When no explanation followed, she asked, So what? The owner of the name Ryan bowed his head doomedly. That's it, the young man exhaled drunkenly. Eugene was already laughing like a hyena, not embarrassed at all. He slapped his knee with his palm, as if he planned to detach his kneecap. Ryan, brother, I was just kidding. Girls don't flee from all Ryan, like devils from incense. He exhaled through fits of laughter. Daisy, tell him. Daisy, however, also laughed. Oh, so that's what you mean, Angela smiled, finally realizing what they meant. I like the name Ryan. Sounds like the name of a hero from a fairy tale. Ryan looked at Angela with respect and gratitude. He had never considered his name from this perspective. The noisy company
had fun for a long time. Daisy and Eugene constantly called their friends bride and groom, even asked the supposed groom to kiss his bride. But Angela and Ryan didn't give in. Jokes flowed like a river, as did the booze. Angela laughed and tried to remember the last time she felt so good. She no longer considered this company as strangers. On the contrary, there was a pleasant feeling in her soul, as if she had known these people all her life. Angela told them about her childhood, how they lived. She also told them about her father and which hospital he was in. She was amazed by the love between Daisy and Eugene, and also, every now and then, caught a glance from her fiancé. Ryan was handsome, but that wasn't what attracted her. How much that feeling meant to her. In the morning, however, when the house woke up, Angela was gone. She had gotten scared and run away, much to the disappointment of her new friends. She had only left a thank you note, with no phone number or address. Well, there you go. It looks like the car will be mine after all. However, it's a pity that Cinderella left and didn't even leave her slipper, Eugene remarked, who noticed how Ryan gloomed. Daisy took her friend's shoulder and shoved a mug of coffee into his hands. And I liked her, more than Tiffany. Me too, Ryan blurted out before he realized what he had confessed. He was in shock himself. However, even in the morning with a sober head, he caught himself thinking that he liked Angela immensely. He hoped that he would see her again, but he didn't rely on fate, deciding to take matters into his own hands. Meanwhile, Angela, having escaped from Ryan's house, got to her apartment. Thankfully, George wasn't inside. Charging her phone, she found out that her boss had been trying to call her. When she called back, she heard many new things about herself, and finally, the man barked, "Get to work immediately! I needed you yesterday, but you weren't there."
"Today is Sunday," she muttered.
"I don't care. Start working, or you can forget about your position."
"You know what? That's precisely what I'm going to do. I'll forget about your shoddy office like a terrible dream."
Angela snapped and hung up the phone. Her heart was beating frantically, but inside flashed joy. She had stood up for herself and quit, and she would find another job. That same day, Angela sat down at her laptop and sent her resume everywhere, even to places she had never dreamed of applying. She was overflowing with a strange determination, and even a certain excitement appeared. This had never happened to her before. George came in the evening. He even bothered to bring with him a hastily picked bunch of flowers, likely ruining someone else's flower bed. However, by this time, Angela had already agreed with the apartment owner that she would move out. She packed her things and moved in with her parents. George started calling Angela and came to her parents' house. He pestered his former fiancée for a long time, begging her to forgive him, but she was adamant. Hannah also got in touch, calling her friend. After listening to her strange excuses, Angela said, "For the sake of our old friendship, I'll tell you this, Hannah. If a man cheated once, and in such a mean and low way, he'll do it again. Thank you for opening my eyes to what a vile man George is. Thank you for not letting me tie my fate to him. Thank you for saving me from that pit. And for dropping your mask too. Thank you," Angela said, and then bid farewell to Hannah forever. Soon her mother returned from the hospital, flushed and elated, and stunned her daughter with unexpected news. "Can you believe it? A charitable foundation will cover your father's surgery and rehabilitation. They're even providing a sanatorium stay for 2. I received the call today," she exclaimed, her voice quivering with joy. Angela embraced her mother, feeling that her life had indeed taken a turn for the better. The following day, she received an offer to work as a designer at an advertising agency. Angela accepted without hesitation. Upon arrival, the girl was directed straight to the chief director's office, instead of the personnel department. She paused to collect herself before knocking.
Come in, a vaguely familiar voice called out. Angela entered with a polite smile, only to freeze in astonishment. Ryan! Here is the runaway bride. Another familiar, playful voice sounded from her right. Eugene sat there, childishly spinning in his computer chair. Hello, Angela, he waved. Delighted to see you. Angela realized that she had tears in her eyes. How stupid and inexplicable. However, she felt as if she had met good old friends, ones she had missed. Hello, she managed, her voice hoarse. Oh, don't cry. Daisy will have my head if she thinks I upset you, Eugene exclaimed, leaping to his feet. All right, lovebirds, I'll leave you be. As the door closed behind him, Ryan gestured towards an armchair. Please, sit, Angela Beckett, he smiled. Angela complied, her gaze fixed on Ryan. Suited, clean-shaven and sober, he appeared even more handsome. He glanced at her resume. So, a designer? Angela nodded. Yes, I mentioned it before. I recall, he said, setting the resume aside and meeting her eyes. I also remember you agreeing to marry me. Angela blushed deeply, averting her gaze. You know how it is after parties, waking up with a headache and a sense of shame. I thought it'd be the same for you. Besides, I was certain you were joking. I wasn't. A proposal without a ring doesn't count, Angela retorted defensively. Ryan retrieved a box of paper clips from his drawer, unfolded one, and fashioned it into a ring. What's this? Some kind of team-building exercise? Angela squeaked as he rose and approached her. Video for the song Let's Get Married? He grinned. Are you that reluctant to part with your car? Angela's hands fluttered nervously as her heart raced. I don't want to part with you, Ryan replied, causing Angela to still. Call it madness, but if conventional marriage didn't work, why not try this? What have we got to lose? He gently took her trembling hand and slipped the makeshift ring onto her slender finger. What do you say? Ryan smiled, looking boyish. Angela had never been one for risks. She'd always played it safe. But now, as if possessed, she heard herself say, Yes, let's do it. After all, what do I have to lose? Though I still want to be a designer, she added hastily. Office romance? I'm game, Ryan smirked. They both burst into laughter, unable to contain themselves. They knew this whole scenario was absurd, a farce of the highest order. But they were enjoying the game. Neither wanted it to end. Little did they know that they would indeed marry, not out of spite towards their exes, or because of a silly bet, but because they would fall deeply in love. Each day, Angela and Ryan would uncover new facets of each other's personalities, falling even more in love. A month into her new job, Angela stumbled upon documents from her father's hospital in Ryan's office. Intrigued, she perused the contract and discovered the identity of the mysterious benefactor who had saved her father's life. It turned out that even in his inebriated state, Ryan had retained every word she'd said. Noticing Angela's concern for her parents, he had tracked down a patient with such a rare name and diagnosis, deciding to help. He had kept his involvement with the Beckett family a secret, which only made Angela more enamoured. At that moment, she understood what it meant to have someone who truly cared for her. They married in August. The grandmother danced with youthful vigour, as promised. She winked at her grandson and his young bride, saying, Now, I'll live to embrace my great-grandchildren, but you two, don't dawdle. I'm not getting any younger. Eugene harboured no resentment about the car. He was too happy for his friend. Daisy and Angela became inseparable. Before long, both couples welcomed children,
almost simultaneously. The Adamses had a boy, the O'Neills a girl. The children became friends from infancy. Ryan and Eugene now joked about potentially becoming in-laws someday. Angela and Eugene never sought information about those who had betrayed them. They were too preoccupied with their joyful present and promising future to dwell on the past. Yet, when life presented challenges, they couldn't help but remember that these very obstacles often lead to something meaningful. Angela knew with certainty that sometimes one must traverse a dark forest barefoot to find true happiness. The key is to spot the light in someone else's window and, perhaps, embrace the adventure.